A silent challenge. In the endless, silent depths of space, 3 human ships drifted forward, their engines muted, their dark hulls absorbing the starlight like shadows. The ships were sleek, but their quiet appearance belied the incredible power within, technology decades ahead of any known species. The lead ship, Thunderchild, was the pride of humanity's fleet, a masterpiece of engineering. On its bridge, Commander Max Keller stood at the helm, watching the vast, starry expanse with sharp eyes, his hands resting on the cold surface of the command console. The stars stretched infinitely in every direction, but his mind was elsewhere, focused on what lay ahead. "Sir, we're nearing the outer rim of uncharted space," Lieutenant Maya Torres, the sensor officer, spoke up, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. She turned, her brow furrowed as she adjusted the holographic display in front of her. "Multiple contacts, Commander," she said, her voice a mix of excitement and caution. "They're big, massive. Reading shows they have an energy signature that's off the charts, far beyond what we've ever seen." Max's lips curled into a confident smile. "How many?" 27, Maya replied, eyes widening as she analyzed the readings further. "The largest is over 4 kilometers in length. They're not hiding anything either, powering up weapons, shields fully engaged." On the bridge, a hush fell over the crew. Every one of them had been trained for this moment, this inevitable first contact with the unknown. Humanity had spent years preparing for it, knowing that someday someone would come, and they'd have to face the challenge head-on. The Galactic Empire, an ancient and unyielding force, had been a whispered threat for decades. Today, humanity would meet it face to face. "Put them on visual," Max ordered, his voice cool, composed. The main view screen flickered to life. At first, it showed only a vast blackness. Then, like something out of a myth, a fleet of enormous ships appeared, gleaming with gold and silver. Their design was intricate, like massive floating palaces more than warships. Max watched, his expression unreadable. It had taken humanity generations to reach this point, to be ready for an encounter with the Empire. But no one had expected the first meeting to be so theatrical. The alien ship's elegance made them look almost like an exaggerated caricature of power. "They're hailing us," Maya reported, breaking the tension in the air. Max nodded, "Put it through." The screen shifted to show a tall, regal-looking alien. Its skin was a deep shade of purple, and its attire was opulent, covered in intricate patterns that shimmered as if alive. The alien's posture was one of condescending superiority, and it spoke in a slow, deliberate voice. "Unknown vessels, you have entered the territory of the Galactic Imperial Empire," it began, its tone as cold and imperious as its appearance. "You will power down your vessels immediately and prepare to be boarded. Your species will be evaluated for worthiness to serve as subjects of the Empire. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction." For a moment, no one on the Thunderchild bridge moved. There was a palpable silence, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's engines. The crew exchanged glances, their eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Commander Keller, however, was unmoved. After a long pause, Max looked up, and the faintest hint of amusement curled at the corners of his lips. He leaned forward in his chair, his gaze locked on the alien, and began to laugh, softly at first, then louder. The alien's face twisted in confusion. What is this?" it demanded, its voice crackling with a mix of irritation and disbelief. "Do you not understand what I am saying? Your resistance will be crushed. You cannot stand against the might of the Empire." Max wiped a tear from his eye, still chuckling. "Oh, we understand you perfectly," he said, his voice calm, but full of a quiet confidence that unnerved the alien. "It's just, well, we've been watching your empire for decades now, and we were all betting on what your first words would be. I just won the ship's betting pool." There was a stunned silence on both sides. The alien stared at Max, its eyes narrowing. It had not expected this kind of response. "You dare mock the Imperial fleet? The alien's voice now held a hint of outrage. "Our ships outnumber yours 9-1. You are nothing but insignificant insects." Max's laughter died away, replaced by a calm, predatory smile. "You think that matters to us?" he asked, his tone now icy with certainty. "Let me tell you something. Before humanity took to the stars, we spent thousands of years fighting each other. Every major advancement we made came from trying to figure out new ways to kill each other, to wage war. When we weren't fighting, we were preparing for the next fight." The alien's expression faltered, its arrogance slowly giving way to uncertainty. Max leaned forward in his chair, his eyes locked onto the alien's. "We split the atom not to build peace, but to create better bombs. We went to space not out of curiosity, but because of a Cold War. We developed computers to break military codes, to outwit our enemies. We mapped our own genes to create better soldiers. And when we finally united as one, it wasn't because we learned to love peace." He paused, letting the words sink in. The alien's face had gone pale, its posture stiffening. Max stood now, walking toward the screen. He could almost feel the alien's confusion radiating through the connection. "We united because we realized that sooner or later we'd meet someone like you, someone who thinks they can conquer us, and we decided that wasn't going to happen." The crew of the Thunderchild held their breath, waiting. Max turned, his smile widening as he sat back down. "So here's what's going to happen," he continued. "You're going to watch us, and you're going to learn what happens when you challenge humanity. You're going to learn what happens when we fight back." The screen flickered again, but this time it was filled with the image of the alien, its once imposing demeanor crumbling under the weight of human resolve. The Thunderchild and its fleet were no longer outmatched. They were the ones in control. And the first lesson of the Galactic Empire was about to begin. The gamble of humanity. The silence of space was broken only by the soft hum of the Thunderchild's engines. As the alien fleet loomed ahead, its gilded ships appearing more like floating monuments than warships, the crew of the Thunderchild remained eerily calm. On the bridge, Commander Max Keller stood at the center, his eyes not on the alien vessels, but on the blank expanse of space beyond them. There was a strange, almost magnetic pull in that void, the unknown, the challenge, the fight for survival. Humanity had always been at its best when cornered. Max leaned against the command console, his posture relaxed despite the high-stakes situation unfolding. A few days ago, he had believed that his biggest challenge would be navigating through the far reaches of unexplored space. Now, they were on the brink of something far more dangerous, yet strangely exhilarating. Facing an enemy that outnumbered them was nothing new. Humanity's history was built on defiance against overwhelming odds. Lieutenant Maya Torres, the sensor officer, stood close to her console, her fingers flying across the holographic interface as she monitored the alien fleet's movements. "They're not backing down, Commander. The fleet is shifting into a tighter formation. They're preparing something." Max glanced at her, his eyes narrowing slightly. Something more than just posturing. Maya nodded, her gaze never leaving the display. "They've increased their energy output, possibly readying their weapons." For a moment, Max was silent, his mind racing through the possibilities. Humanity had known about the Galactic Empire for decades, but only in whispers and rumors. Tales of their unimaginable strength, their ancient might. But there had always been a part of him that couldn't believe the Empire was invincible. Not when humanity had been through so much: war, chaos, and a constant drive to push the boundaries of what was possible. "Bring up their communication channel again," Max ordered, his voice cutting through the tense atmosphere. Maya hesitated but complied. Moments later, the screen flickered, and the same regal alien appeared. Its expression was colder now, sharper, as though it had been reminded of the vast distance between its species and humanity. "You continue to defy us, primitive vessel. You have been given a choice, and yet you refuse to submit. Prepare to face the consequences." Max stared at the alien, then casually turned to the crew. "I don't think it understands yet. It's trying to intimidate us. Let's make sure we don't disappoint it. A faint chuckle passed through the bridge. The crew had long been used to Max's unflinching attitude, even in the most impossible of situations. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't even afraid. The crew's loyalty, their unspoken faith in their commander, seemed to fill the air like an invisible force field. Max's voice cut through the tension. Tell them we're not interested in submitting, but we are open to negotiating terms. The communications officer, Lieutenant Daniel Reed, looked at Max with a raised brow, but quickly initiated the transmission. The alien on the other side sneered, clearly unimpressed by Max's nonchalant tone. There is no negotiation. You will surrender or be destroyed. That's cute, Max replied, leaning back in his chair and crossing his arms. But I'm afraid you're not listening. You see, we didn't come here to surrender. We came here to show you that things don't work the way you think they do. Your empire is not the first to try and dominate us, and you won't be the last. The alien's eyes flickered with something approaching anger, but it held back, clearly unsure of how to handle this defiant human. You're playing a dangerous game, human. The Empire. Max turned to face her, his gaze unwavering. Let them wait. We've already made our move. The crew looked at each other, a mix of confusion and curiosity on their faces. Max's words didn't make sense at first. What had they done? All they had done was stand their ground, mock the alien empire, but that had been enough. Humanity had already taken the first step towards something monumental. They had challenged the very foundation of the Empire's power. Bring up the fleet's capabilities, Max continued, his voice calm, his mind working with ruthless precision. I want to know everything we can do to make this count. Maya nodded, her hands dancing across the console, pulling up the full capabilities of the Thunderchild and the two accompanying ships, Vanguard and Freedom's Edge. Here it is, Commander. The Thunderchild is armed with a Class 10 kinetic cannon, a new type of railgun that can shred enemy shields with pinpoint accuracy. Vanguard carries an experimental quantum torpedo system, and Freedom's Edge is equipped with stealth tech that could potentially bypass their sensors. Max studied the data for a moment. The ships weren't nearly as powerful as the alien fleet. Their weapons were advanced, but not enough to match the sheer scale of the enemy's might. Yet, in this moment, that didn't matter. What mattered was the one thing the Empire had never counted on: human creativity. We won't beat them by force alone, Max said, his voice full of quiet conviction. But we don't need to. We've got something they don't: ingenuity, resourcefulness, and the ability to think outside their rigid command structure. As the crew absorbed his words, something began to shift in the air, a growing sense of purpose. It was one thing to stand tall in the face of the enemy. It was another to understand that victory would come not through brute strength, but through the kind of clever thinking that had brought humanity from the depths of Earth's ancient conflicts to the stars. Lieutenant Reed, Max called, turning to the communications officer. I want you to send a message, but not to the fleet. Send it to their flagship. Reed hesitated for a moment, clearly unsure of the commander's plan. Commander, they'll know it's a bluff. It's not going to change their minds. Max's smile was cool, almost predatory. That's exactly the point. Reed quickly typed out the message as Max spoke. Tell them we have information. Detailed intel about a weakness in their command structure. Something that could shake the very foundation of their empire. Make it sound like they're being watched, like there's someone who knows exactly how to take them down. The message was brief, cryptic, but calculated to plant seeds of doubt. Humanity's first move wasn't just to confront the Empire, but to force it to question its own security. The Empire's greatest flaw, Max knew, was its overconfidence. The message wasn't meant to make them retreat, but to make them nervous, to make them think twice. Send it, Max ordered. Reed hesitated for a split second before pressing the final key, sending the message through encrypted channels directly to the flagship of the alien fleet. The crew waited, their collective breath held, as they watched the communication relay. Then, almost immediately, the alien fleet's transmission channel flared up again. This time, the alien on the screen wasn't as composed. It looked rattled. Its regal appearance was now marred by an edge of anxiety, its previously unshakable posture now stiff and wary. "You dare threaten the might of the Empire with false information," the alien hissed, its eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Do not mistake this for a game, human. You will pay for your insolence." Max remained calm, his eyes never leaving the screen. "I'm not threatening you," he said, his voice steady. "I'm offering you a chance to avoid a costly mistake. I wouldn't want to see you lose everything just because you underestimated us." The alien's gaze flickered, betraying a hint of doubt. "You think you have leverage? You think your small fleet can?" Max cut it off. "Let me make one thing clear. We don't need to win the fight. We just need to make you question everything. To make you realize that you're no longer the unstoppable force you think you are. The real war isn't on the battlefield, it's in your mind. And right now, you're losing." The alien seethed with frustration, but before it could respond, the screen went black. The message had been delivered, and the Empire's confidence had taken its first hit. "Well done, Commander," Maya said, her voice laced with quiet admiration. "They're rattled. For the first time, they're questioning their power." Max turned to face his crew, his eyes alight with a fiery determination. "This is just the beginning. We've made them question their superiority. Now, it's time to show them what happens when humanity stands up and fights back. They might have the numbers. They might have the firepower. But they'll never have the one thing that matters most, the will to survive." As the Thunderchild and its fleet prepare for the next phase, the crew felt something shift deep within them. They weren't just defending their species, they were igniting the fire of resistance that would one day burn bright enough to challenge the very empire that thought it could crush them. And the spark had just begun. The unseen weapon, the vast expanse of space, seemed to grow darker as the Thunderchild and her fleet drifted closer to the Imperial fleet. Tension hung thick in the air like a storm waiting to break. The alien ships, though magnificent in design, no longer appeared as invincible giants. Instead, they seemed like cumbersome beasts, their gilded exteriors a fragile veneer hiding the uncertainty that had begun to infect their command. The message Max had sent had done its work, sowing seeds of doubt, but that was only the first step. The true test would come next. On the bridge, the crew was on edge, their minds sharp and focused. Every small shift in the alien fleet's formation was monitored, every minor change in their power output recorded. But now it was time for the real plan to unfold. The question wasn't how to defeat the Empire, it was how to make them understand that they had already lost. Max Keller stood at the front of the bridge, his gaze fixed on the viewscreen, where the massive alien fleet loomed in the distance. The Empire was still there, still powerful, but now it wasn't just a force to be reckoned with. It was an enemy that had been rattled, made to feel something they had never considered: vulnerability. "Lieutenant Torres," Max's voice broke the silence, as calm and commanding as ever. "Initiate Phase 1. Maya's fingers flew across the holographic interface, her face a mask of concentration. "Phase 1 initiated, Commander. The stealth systems are active, and Freedom's Edge is in position." Max nodded. "Good, now we wait." The quiet hum of the Thunderchild's engines filled the air as the crew held their breath. They weren't yet ready to fight. They were waiting for the moment when the Empire's arrogance would blind them to the growing threat right under their nose. And that was where humanity's greatest strength lay: the ability to think beyond the immediate battlefield, to use strategy and cunning in ways that the Empire, with its rigid, hierarchical thinking, simply could not. The Freedom's Edge, the smallest of the three ships, had been equipped with advanced stealth technology designed to make it nearly invisible to enemy sensors. It had infiltrated the outer perimeter of the Imperial fleet, positioning itself behind a moon in the nearby system, ready to strike. Max had made a calculated gamble. The Empire would be focused on the Thunderchild and the Vanguard. By drawing their attention, he had created the perfect opening for Freedom's Edge to deploy its most powerful weapon. Phase 2 will begin once we have their full attention, Max said, his voice steady. We want them to focus entirely on us. Let them think we're just a small fleet that can be crushed. Then, we'll show them that the biggest threat is the one they can't even see coming. As the crew continued their preparations, Max's thoughts drifted briefly back to Earth. Humanity's entire history had been defined by resilience and the ability to adapt. From the first fire to the first flight to the first steps on Mars, humans had always found a way to turn the impossible into the possible. The Empire thought they understood war, thought they understood domination. But humanity had been at war with itself for centuries, struggling, adapting, evolving. And in that evolution, humanity had learned one crucial lesson. The most dangerous weapon was never the one you could see. It was the one you could not. Enemy flagship is requesting a direct communication, Reed said, his voice breaking Max's train of thought. Put them through, Max replied without hesitation. The view screen flickered to life again, showing the same alien from before, its purple skin now flushed with a hint of anger. You continue to defy us, human, the alien said, its voice dripping with disdain. But you are wasting your time. You cannot escape your fate. Surrender now, or face complete annihilation. Max leaned forward, locking eyes with the alien. I'm not interested in surrendering, he said, his tone unflinching. And I'm certainly not interested in playing by your rules. But you might want to consider the possibility that you've already lost. The alien's face twisted in confusion. What are you talking about? You're a speck in the vastness of the Empire. You cannot hope to win. Max's eyes narrowed. That's where you're wrong. You see, it's not about winning the battle. It's about making you realize that you've already made a fatal mistake. And when you realize that, it will be too late. The transmission ended abruptly, and Max turned to face the crew. The tension was palpable. They had no illusions about their chances in a direct confrontation, but Max wasn't looking for a battle. He was setting the stage for something far more subtle and far more devastating. Prepare Phase 3, Max ordered. It's time to show them the real threat. Maya's fingers danced across the console, activating the final phase of the plan. The Thunderchild and Vanguard moved into position, drawing the full attention of the alien fleet. At the same time, Freedom's Edge was preparing to make its move. As the alien ships adjusted their formations, focusing all their firepower on the two main human vessels, they remained unaware of the silent predator closing in behind them. Freedom's Edge had remained cloaked long enough. It was time to unleash its most secret weapon, a new kind of quantum disruptor, one designed to break through even the Empire's most sophisticated shields. Max watched intently as the smaller ship prepared to fire. The quantum disruptor would send a burst of energy that could interfere with the Empire's communication and control systems, crippling their fleet from within. It wouldn't destroy the ships, but it would create chaos, enough chaos to turn the tide. Now, Max whispered under his breath. With a blinding flash, the quantum disruptor activated, sending a pulse of energy that struck the heart of the Imperial fleet. The alien ships rocked, their shields flickering as they lost contact with each other. The Empire's powerful command structure, the very thing that had kept them organized for centuries, was thrown into disarray. The Empire's fleets, once a towering symbol of dominance, now seemed vulnerable, lost in the void. The confusion spread like wildfire through the alien ranks, and for the first time, the human fleet had the upper hand. Max watched as the Empire's ships faltered, their once imposing formations breaking apart in a chaotic scramble. Max's voice was calm, but filled with purpose. Now we strike. The tide turns. The Empire's fleet was in disarray, their once unshakable control slipping through their fingers like sand. For the first time in centuries, their superiority was questioned, and that uncertainty had spread through the alien ranks like wildfire. Max Keller stood on the bridge of the Thunderchild, watching the chaos unfold on the view screen. The alien ships, once so sure of their might, were now floundering, their carefully coordinated formations crumbling as the quantum disruptor continued to wreak havoc. "Commander," Maya Torres said, her voice tense with excitement. The Empire's communication systems are down. They can't coordinate their attacks. Their ships are scattered, vulnerable. Max nodded, his mind racing. The disruptor had worked, better than he had hoped. The pulse of energy had caused a complete breakdown in the Empire's fleet-wide communications, leaving the ships unable to respond to the rapidly changing battlefield. Their once pristine formations had broken apart, and now the human fleet had an opportunity to strike. "Get me a direct line to Vanguard," Max ordered, his voice low but filled with intent. "Opening the channel now, Commander," Reed said, his hands flying across the controls. The screen flickered and then resolved into the image of Captain Elena Ramirez, the commanding officer of Vanguard. Her face was focused, determined, but there was a spark of excitement in her eyes. "Max," she said, her tone clipped but confident, "it's working. The fleet's falling apart. The Empire's lost their edge." "I know," Max replied, a grin tugging at his lips. "But we're not done yet. It's time to finish what we started. We need to hit them fast before they can recover. You know what to do." Ramirez nodded without hesitation. "Understood. Vanguard is ready to move out." Max turned back to the bridge crew. "Prepare to engage the remaining Imperial ships. We need to exploit their disarray while they're still off balance. Focus all fire on their command vessel. If we can take out their leader, the rest will crumble." The crew sprang into action, the hum of the ship's engines resonating as they readied themselves for the final push. The plan had always been to sow doubt and chaos among the Empire, but Max's instincts told him that they had to press the advantage. There was no time to waste. "All stations, prepare for combat," Maya called, her fingers tapping rapidly on her console. "We'll need to move quickly to maintain the momentum." The view on the screen shifted as the Thunderchild and Vanguard accelerated, closing the distance between them and the remaining Imperial ships. Their targets were already clear. The largest command ship, a monstrous vessel nearly 10 kilometers in length, surrounded by a swarm of smaller escorts. The flagship was heavily armored, its golden hull gleaming, but it was vulnerable. Its communication systems were crippled, and its fleet was in chaos. Max's mind was focused, calculating every move, every angle. This was no longer a simple skirmish. This was a battle for survival. If they could disable the flagship, the rest of the Imperial forces would lose their cohesion, and humanity would have won its first true victory over the Empire. "Lock on target," Maya said, her voice steady. "Weapons primed." "Firing on my mark," Max replied, his fingers hovering over the tactical controls. He could feel the pulse of the ship beneath his feet, a steady rhythm that matched the heartbeat of his crew. They were ready, now. The Thunderchild unleashed its full fury, a torrent of energy and kinetic firepower tearing through the darkness. The massive railguns fired first, sending slug-like projectiles with pinpoint accuracy toward the enemy flagship. The kinetic cannon followed, each shot hitting with the force of a small moon, crushing into the hull of the alien ship. The first round of fire was devastating, shaking the flagship's defenses to their core. But Max wasn't just relying on brute force. "Deploy the quantum torpedoes," he ordered, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. The Vanguard launched the first of its experimental quantum torpedoes. The shimmering blue missiles streaked through the void, leaving a trail of energy in their wake. The torpedoes found their mark, detonating with pinpoint precision against the flagship's weakened shields, causing massive energy surges that rippled across its surface. The Empire's flagship faltered, its defenses weakening, but it wasn't over yet. The alien ships still outnumbered the human fleet, and they weren't going to give up without a fight. "Enemy ships are rallying," Maya reported, her eyes scanning the rapidly changing battlefield. "They're organizing for a counterattack." Max knew that the Empire's military might would soon regroup, and they needed more than just firepower to win this fight. They needed to outsmart them, to keep the pressure on in ways the Empire would never expect. "Hold steady," Max said, his voice filled with confidence. This is where we make them question everything. The unexpected tactic. As the battle raged on, the Thunderchild and Vanguard continued to press the attack. But Max was already thinking ahead. The Empire might have been faltering now, but they wouldn't stay disorganized for long. The question was, how could humanity exploit the cracks in the Empire's side? How could they force the aliens to question their leadership, their technology, and their very existence? The answer came in a flash of inspiration. "Get me Freedom's Edge," Max ordered, turning to Lieutenant Reed. "Commander," Reed replied, confusion in his voice. "They're still cloaked. If they reveal themselves now, the Empire will be ready for them." "I don't care," Max said firmly. "Tell them to deploy the decoys. We're going to pull their attention away from the flagship." Maya's eyebrows rose in realization. "You want us to create a distraction, one they can't ignore." Max grinned. "Exactly. If they're focused on something they think is more dangerous, we'll hit them where it hurts." The Freedom's Edge had a hidden asset, a set of advanced holographic projectors capable of creating decoy ships, realistic but entirely fake. The plan was simple: deploy the decoys in a way that would draw the Empire's fire away from the real fleet, giving the Thunderchild and Vanguard the opening they needed to finish the job. As the decoys flickered into existence on the Empire's sensors, the alien fleet shifted its focus, pulling their firepower toward the false threats. The holographic ships danced through space, expertly mimicking the real human vessels. The Empire, in their desperation, fell for the trick. Meanwhile, Max's ships turned their attention to the real target, the now exposed flagship. The Thunderchild and Vanguard struck once more, delivering a final barrage that shattered the flagship's defenses. The alien ship staggered under the onslaught, its golden exterior cracking and buckling. Max's voice was calm, but filled with the weight of what was at stake. "This is it. Finish it." The final volley of kinetic fire tore through the flagship's core, causing a massive explosion that rocked the surrounding ships. The Empire's flagship, once a symbol of their indomitable power, was reduced to a burning husk. For the first time, humanity had forced the Empire to retreat, not through sheer strength, but through strategy, innovation, and an unyielding will to survive. Max turned to the crew, his heart pounding with exhilaration. "We've done it. We've made them realize that humanity will never be conquered." And with that, the tides of war had shifted. The Empire's vaunted superiority had been shattered, and humanity had proven that no force in the universe could ever truly subjugate them. The reckoning. The black void of space had never seemed so alive. The shattered remnants of the Imperial flagship drifted in the vacuum, its once proud golden hull now a twisted wreck. The battle had turned decisively in humanity's favor. The Empire, stunned by the loss of their flagship and their coordinated assault, had begun to retreat. The remaining alien ships were scattered, their command structure in ruins. Yet even as the victory seemed assured, Max Keller knew the war was far from over. The Empire wasn't a collection of ships. It was a far-reaching force with a vast web of influence across the galaxy. And if they had learned anything from this encounter, it was that the Empire would not take this defeat lightly. On the bridge of the Thunderchild, the crew was abuzz with activity, their eyes fixed on the viewscreen. The alien fleet was retreating, but the question remained: would the Empire regroup and return stronger, or was this humanity's moment to forge a new path in the stars? "Commander," Maya Torres said, her voice tinged with both excitement and caution, "the Empire's ships are pulling back. The ones that remain are abandoning the flagship's wreckage. They're heading deeper into their own territory." Max stood motionless for a moment, watching the alien ships disappear into the distance. A sense of victory pulsed through him, but there was something else, an eerie feeling that they hadn't truly won yet. The Empire, after all, had never known defeat like this before. How would they respond? Would they send reinforcements? Or would they reconsider their entire approach to humanity? "Max, we did it," Reed said, his voice thick with disbelief. "They're running. We've beaten them." Max finally turned to face his crew. Yes, we've won this battle, but the war isn't over. They won't forget this. The Empire is like a beast wounded in the wild. No matter how badly it's hurt, it'll lash out if it feels cornered. Then we'll be ready for them, Maya replied, her hands already typing commands into her station. We've already shown them what humans can do. Max nodded, his mind already racing through the next steps. Let's make sure they remember. The unexpected response. As Max ordered his crew to prepare for the next phase, a soft chime echoed through the bridge. It was a communication alert, a signal coming from the direction of the retreating Empire. Max frowned. The Empire had never attempted to negotiate after a loss like this. It was unheard of. Their pride would never allow for a peaceful resolution. And yet, open the channel, Max ordered, his instincts telling him to be cautious. The view screen flickered to life, revealing an image that Max had not expected. A single alien, not from the command hierarchy, but appearing far more composed and strategic, stood before him. The alien's face was different from the others. Its skin was a muted violet, its expression devoid of the arrogance that had defined the Empire's previous representatives. In its eyes, Max saw something rare in the alien species: curiosity. Commander Max Keller, the alien's voice was calm, measured, but tinged with an edge of respect. I represent the Imperial Council. We request a ceasefire. Max leaned forward, his expression neutral, but inside, his mind raced. This was unexpected. A ceasefire. After everything that had happened, why would the Empire suddenly seek peace? Ceasefire, Max echoed, raising an eyebrow. What makes you think we'd consider that after everything you've done? The alien's eyes flickered with a hint of sadness. You misunderstand, Commander. This is not a request driven by weakness, but by a realization. The Empire has underestimated your species. You have proven that you are more than just a primitive race to be conquered. We cannot ignore this any longer. Max could hardly believe what he was hearing. The Empire was admitting defeat, at least to some extent, but that didn't mean humanity was ready to lay down their arms. He had learned too much about the Empire's ruthlessness to trust them now. We've shown you what we're capable of, Max said, his voice hardening. But make no mistake, we will not stop fighting for our right to exist. If you think you can just walk away from this, you're gravely mistaken. The alien's gaze hardened for a moment, but then softened again. We understand your anger, Commander, but we are not asking for your surrender. We are offering a chance for cooperation. Max's mind whirled. The Empire, the very force that had crushed countless civilizations in its wake, was offering cooperation. It didn't make sense. Cooperation, Maya said, voicing the confusion that everyone on the bridge felt. How do we cooperate with an empire that has tried to wipe us out? The alien's expression remained calm. We do not wish to be enemies. The Empire has its flaws, just as your species does. But we are also willing to learn from those who have proven themselves capable of such innovation and resilience. We extend this offer not because we fear you, but because we recognize something in humanity that is valuable. Max took a deep breath. This was a turning point, an opportunity he had not expected, but one that could change the course of history. But he was not ready to trust the Empire so easily. We will consider your offer, he said slowly. But know this, we don't negotiate with those who seek to dominate us. If this is a trap, we'll make sure you regret it. The alien nodded, its face unreadable. I expect nothing less. We will await your response. The transmission ended, leaving an uneasy silence behind. Max turned to his crew, his mind racing. What had just happened? Could the Empire really be offering peace, or was this a more insidious form of manipulation? We need to prepare for everything, Max said finally, his voice low but steady. This could be a trick, or it could be a genuine opportunity. Either way, we'll need to be ready for whatever comes next. Maya nodded. Understood. I'll start analyzing the communication for any signs of deceit. Reed stepped forward, his eyes wide with disbelief. But if they are sincere, this could be the beginning of something big. A chance to end this war without bloodshed. Max sighed, rubbing his temple. Maybe, but I don't believe in peace at the cost of weakness. Let's keep our guard up and see what their next move is. If they try anything, we'll make them regret it. The choice. The Thunderchild and Vanguard drifted silently in space, their weapons primed, but their crews on edge. Humanity had proven its strength, and now they stood at a crossroads. Would the Empire accept humanity as an equal, or would this cooperation be a facade to lure them into a trap? Max wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew one thing. Humanity had already taken the first step toward a new era. The war was not over, not by a long shot, but for the first time, Max felt a glimmer of hope that they might have the power to choose their destiny, not just survive.